we are going to have 4 sessions. In the first session, we're going to understand fundamentals. We're going to understand the concepts like the basics of compensation. I'm sure all of you know, but yet we will go through that. And then we will also understand this. What is this? Very commonly heard word called total reward strategy. In fact, some of you wanted to know and wanting to implement that. And also the factors which really impact compensation, both internal and external, but more with the external factors today. In the second session, what we would be doing is the how are we going to actually design salary structures. So the starting point would be how do we then evaluate the worth of the job. So we will be learning about job evaluation techniques, and especially the point rating method, which is a very quantitative method, uses regression analysis, and then you can actually design salary structures taking the market data. And in the third session, which is again an intensive session, I would say, where we are looking at um, external equity, or what we call it as market benchmarking. How do we do that? What kind of data do we get from? Where do we get them from? What kind of companies are we going to incorporate? Then how do we do the analysis after collating data? The how do we actually do the percentiles, quartiles? Then how do we do the positioning? Or for example, I'm not doing benchmarking, but I get data as a competent person in the organization. Then how do I use this compensation benchmarking data? So how do I compare my salary data with the market data, etc.? And then we're also going to do compensation metrics, which are very, very key. Apart from that, we'll also look at certain designing of certain salary structures. And in the end, in the session 4, we are going to look at what we are also calling it as individual equity. That is more to do with the pay for performance, variable pay. Essentially, this is when two people, are working in the same role, but one person works much more. So how do we compensate them? So it is looking at the individual equity. So if there is any inequity, how do we actually establish the individual equity? So in essence, we are going to do an entire comprehensive uh, understanding of the entire compensation. It's a lot, but yes, definitely you will have to do your own homework by reading. And Vilma will be giving you a lot of reading material, exercises, which you will have to do so that you can actually accelerate your speed of learning. All right. Okay. Once again, welcome to all of you. Great to have you guys. Um, all of you are very senior professionals and have done some amount of work, some of you. Why do you think compensation is really becoming very, very critical? Because I do keep getting in a lot of queries, and everybody is saying, hey, I want to understand compensation. You as an HR person, why do you think compensation is really critical? Uh,
So
and
again, it
especially in
is, yeah,
in in current times, yeah.
yeah. So it is, first of all, one of the thing which currently millennials and Gen Zs are looking for. So even though
Mm-hmm.
for along with life, work-life balance, the major reasons, even I can say in my organization, that major reason of attrition is the compensation. And they all want that within 2, 3 years that they just want that they will get a good hike. So for that, it's very important, and as an organization, to know where exactly we are benchmarked in the as compared to the market, so that we can justify the retention and we can take appropriate actions accordingly. So it should not be our case that we to retain people we just offer them whatever the other companies offering them to retain. So
So one
that,
of the reasons is just to say that uh, to be competitive, right?
yeah,
So that you are able to pay. When I say competitive, that is with reference to market.
with reference to market.
Huh?
Yeah.
And
And
why?
as well as internally also, like if a
Yeah.
person is having this much of experience, this much of qualification, and even if it is a tier 1 college or if it is a tier 3 colleges, so even we can benchmark things internally as well.
So then that, so one is to be competitive or, externally. So I'll put here competitive externally. And um, you also want to be fair and equitable internally.
Yeah.
Equitable. That is, when you look at a set of jobs, you should be able to pay higher the worth of the job, higher salary, lower the worth of the job, lower salary. Are you
Exactly.
with me?
Yeah.
So that means fair and equitable as per the worth of the job. Job, worth, or the value. You can also say value. Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, please. Sanjay,
We should be
Pratya,
compliant.
Shweta.
We should be
Huh?
compliant with all the statutory compliances in terms of
Those are
compensation.
factors which affect compensation, but just we'll take up two, three things. Why in today's times compensation is becoming very, very critical. So it is very critical because you want to attract, right? The
Right.
right kind of people. That's a very important thing, right? You want to attract the right kind of people. Not only attract, then you also want to what?
Retain them. Retain them.
Motivate them, because if they are not motivated, what will happen?
They will go.
They will leave. So only if they are motivated, then they're engaged. You just don't want them to stay because you also want them to be engaged so that they can increase their performance, productivity. And you also want to. So these are the common um, objectives of any compensation, where you are saying, hey, any organization saying, I want to attract, I want to really motivate, I want to engage them, and I want to retain them, so that I'm able to ultimately do what? So that you are ultimately to achieve,
Higher productivity.
right? Achieve business goals, because if you achieve business goals, that means you're obviously achieving your productivity. No? Okay. Now think of your own. Tell me, I want to ask Sanjay. Sanjay, how often do you change your mobile? Do you
Uh,
still have that mobile? I don't know which I used to, Ojo, what I should say, that mobile, not a smartphone. Do you still continue to use that phone?
no,
No,
I've
no.
changed my mobile after that.
Every time, 5 years, 3 years, whenever there
That's
is
right.
a latest features, everything you want to have. Why? Because you want to use them, huh? You want to use a WhatsApp, you want to use the AI, huh? With the but this is a thought I want to leave you. The marketing guy will always come out, use technologies, use everything to keep on changing things. The production guy will buy new technologies, new capacities. Think of your own industry. Think of your business, whether it is operations or whether it is, production, whether it is marketing. They're all the time using current technologies so that they can perform better, so that
Right.
they can perform what effectively and efficiently, right? Huh?
That's
But
right.
but when it comes to HR, your compensation, why should it be in a same old structure or same old, huh? I was using this market data, or I was only having this kind of a structure. No change in structure, no change in the processes, nothing. No change in incentive, no change in benefits, not looking at a total reward strategy. Some may, but what I'm trying to say is 80% of the organizations, when we have done checked, we do surveys, we found that, you know, we try to be contemporary, we try to use the best of the technologies, bring in the, to be the best, to effectively and efficiently perform in other functions. But why not in HR? And then when compensation is very, very critical, right? So if
Right.
you want to get the right people, If you want to actually have them stay in for a longer period, your high performers, then your high performers, if they have to stay, you need to understand, hey, what is that which will keep them in my organization, will retain them in my organization? What kind of retention strategies can I use for my strategic positions? So these are some of the things you should start looking at. Make sense, guys? Saga?
Yes.
So this is just to fire you up a little, saying that, hey, compensation is not something which where is the thing gone, which is looked upon like something which can be carried on, which can be obsolete, like the times in the centuries ago from the barter system. You just don't evolve into, because compensation also should be dynamic, aligned with your HR strategy, which in turn is aligned to your business strategy. So therefore, when we say, when your strategy document is shredded, that means when you get a new strategy, then you also need to look at, hey, if this is my new strategy, these are my new business goals, this is what I have to achieve, then I need to look at my people, my structure, my processes in HR, and then compensation and benefit becomes a very, very critical function. All right. Okay. Having said that, I want you all to tell me, what are some of the factors, especially look at just the external factors which impact compensation. Take a minute, just write a small, you can do it on the chat also. Take a minute and just think about it. Or I will open a whiteboard and we can write there. External factors which are impacting compensation. Yeah. Anybody wants? Yeah, please.
Government rules and regulations.
Okay, great. So can I say, yeah, regulatory? Huh?
Yeah.
Regulatory?
Demand and supply gap, macro,
Great.
macro, economical
Can-
conditions.
Can I say supply and demand of labor?
Yeah, that's right.
Living index.
Market
Demand of
competition.
talent, labor. I'm just using labor, okay? Right now. Huh?
Living index.
Okay. Yeah.
Living index.
So can I say economic conditions? Huh? Because I'm also linking up COLA, etc. with economic, huh? Which is saying, cost of living index. Okay.
Okay.
Inflation, all related to economic.
Market competition.
COLA, and inflation. Right? Okay. Yeah. Market. Right. Absolutely. Market. Whichever market so media will be in that particular market. Construction will have its own market. So
Changing lifestyle.
market pricing. Yes.
Changing lifestyle and preferences, like current people, they're more inclined towards the benefits kind of a thing along with the compensation.
Can you just repeat that word? You said benefits?
Along with the benefits, like nowadays, people ask about the what is in hand and what are the extra benefits providing. So it's the
Yeah.
lifestyle
So
or
this is I can say structuring and how much are you paying. So here we are just looking at what are some of the elements or factors which generally impact compensation, depending on your industry. Like for example, somebody said construction, etc. If you have a union, maybe trade unions, that is collective bargaining, right? Like for example, Vinita was working in Minda and auto component, they do have a lot of what is it non-exempt staff which are to the union. So there what happens, all the wage settlements happen through union negotiations, collective bargaining. Okay, so that becomes one important factor or element which impacts your compensation. What else? Quick one or two. I'm waiting for key ones. I'm
Technology,
writing it.
maybe
Okay.
changing technology.
You said it. I was just about to. Huh? You said it. On globalization and
But
technology.
globalization, would it not come under market competition?
Globalization.
Yeah.
We are talking about market competition, market pricing, where to be very, very specific. Say, for example, I am operating in a auto sector. So what will I do? With reference to market pricing, I'm going to look at those competitors or those peer group where I'm actually getting my talent from or my talent is going. So therefore, it becomes very, very imperative, critical to get to know, hey, what kind of salaries are my peer companies paying? Okay, that's hey, please keep it muted. Now, when I'm talking about globalization, the entire game of offshoring, outshoring, cost arbitrage, labor arbitrage, shifting jobs, mobility of jobs. Are you with me? Whoever mentioned, huh? Does
Yes.
it make sense?
Yes,
When I
yes,
talked
Sadhana.
about globalization, shifting of jobs or mobility of jobs, not the people. So, like for example, US, the cost of a software, the minimum is at least $80,000. But when you shift the job, what is happening? Back office. Why is everybody setting up offices in India? Huh? So obviously, you can get an average engineer even for 3,000, 4,000, or a better engineer at best for 10,000, 15,000. So it depends upon the economic tripwire, in the sense the viability of how much to pay, whether we have to do that. So when I talked about globalization, it is more to do with offshoring, outsourcing, etc. And of course, this kind of a thing will happen only with the help of technology. And because we are, today you have technology where you can actually shift jobs, right? Okay, we'll talk a little more on that. Great. So yeah, in the last but not the least, I want you to add one more. What about social demographic changes? Are you seeing that? More inclusivity happening, huh? Demographics changing, social trends changing, right? So
Yeah.
we'll talk about all this. Somebody had a view? Yeah? Okay. Before that, let me, this will be one. Okay. Can I just rub this? So we'll take, if you want to take just a picture of that if you want. Okay. Yeah. Okay. If take a moment, I want you all to take a moment. We'll start with regulatory. What are some of the government laws or statutory laws we need to comply with
That is
across
minimum
all
wage.
organizations? Tell me.
Minimum
Yes,
wages.
Pardon?
Minimum wages.
Minimum. Okay. Minimum wages.
Bonus
All
Act.
right.
Bonus.
Bonus.
PW.
Bonus.
PF.
PF and ESI.
ASI. LWF. PT.
PF. Okay. Then ESI. Okay. Then
LWF.
Gratuity, bonus,
L- hmm. Professional
gratuity,
tax.
bonus,
Gratuity.
gratuity.
income tax,
Well said.
Professional tax. Labor Welfare Fund, LWF.
Okay. Then
I'm not
here.
sure, but TADA.
I'm sorry, what was
So
it?
when I talked about the regulatory compliance statutory, TADA, does it come under any compliance that you have to give TNDA? TADA is a part of reimbursements, right? Reimbursements, like you send somewhere, so you get on office work. So it will become a part of your reimbursement because you've gone to a certain place on official work to do organizations work. Got it?
Understood, Nirma. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So where do we come? Any more? Anybody who wants
Paid
to?
time off. Paid time off. Like you can say
Somebody has
maternity.
already done some reading. Huh. Like, yeah.
You can say maternity.
ELs and EL encashment and all.
Okay. All kinds of. Then, all right. Then here, any more you want to add?
Yeah. Equal Remuneration Act.
Then Payment of Minimum Wages Act, Equal Remuneration Act.
Right.
Okay. Now, so when we talk about regulatory, they are divided into three categories. One is wage related. So you can see that all wage related, like minimum wages, Equal Remuneration Act. Okay. Then there will be what? Protection. Or you can say, sorry, protection, which is social security. In the real sense, we don't have, but we look at protection. Okay. And then we have protection for, and then we have your income tax. Okay. First of all, let me ask this question. Why do we have these, while government has actually mandated these laws? Let me go to the slide. Why has it been mandated? Why is that regulatory? Why is it important to have them?
That equal pay, at least at a minimum level, that this is the bar which you have to meet.
To avoid exploitation of the, laborers and workers, etc.
Excellent, excellent. So, to prevent discrimination, which law helps you to do that?
Equal.
Payment of equal wages.
Equal
Payment of
Remuneration Act.
equal wages. So, it protects you against what? Discrimination against what? Gender, primarily gender, huh? Caste, religion, huh? Nationality, ethnicity, race, etc. Now, let me tell you, there was a classic case against this Preventing Discrimination and Equal Remuneration Act. This is the famous classic BD case. I don't know if anyone has heard about this BD case. So in Andhra Pradesh, where they were making these BDs, there was a discrimination of payment of wages against men and women. So the men were being paid 100 while the women were being paid 80 per day. So there was a discrimination. Then, so they went up to the court, and the women got back wages, calculated for the previous 5 years. So today, like for example, you can't discriminate a software engineer, a male getting higher and a female getting lower, right? So this is essentially, but somebody is there in the construction business. So if you say, yes, For example, we employ male workers and female workers, and so should they be getting the same salary? So maybe in the industry like a construction, the male worker does a different nature of work, but the female worker has a she's only helping. So therefore, this act applies only when male for the same work. Are you with me, guys? Okay. So it's very important to look at that aspect as well. Okay. And yes, the wage acts, they are there also protecting the poor from exploitation. Otherwise, employer is very, very, comfortable paying a bag of rice barter system. But it says no. By the payment of wages act, it says on certain day, you have to pay only in rupees, right? You can't give a bag of rice, or you can't have a barter system. All right. Now, under the protection programs, what are the, like, for example, you have something called employee state insurance, which anybody who can throw light on ESI Act, what does it do? It helps employees who have, yeah, somebody was wanting to talk. Yeah. Tell me.
Like, employee state insurance is where they are getting the medical benefits for them and their families,
Yeah.
and there is a deduction
But
of
there is
few.
also a caption for employees who get what salary less than or
This
equal
is
to
21,000.
21,000.
21,000. So they are covered. In India, unfortunately, people, so the coverage mandatory is only for people who get 21,000 and less equal. But, for the higher people, it is not mandatory. Okay. Yes, they have an indemnity kind of a thing, but not a insurance, no medical insurance. Then they also have this workers compensation act. By this, what do we mean? So the like for example, somebody was working in the shop floor. Your thumb is cut, depending on which part of your finger, which part of your body is cut. So there is some kind of a compensation defined in that Workers' Compensation Act. So you have to pay that compensation. All right. Then we talked about social security or protecting. So provident fund. Okay, but now of course, so anybody who wants to clarify on PF? Yeah. Anybody?
PF is something, ma'am, where
Mm,
uh,
mm,
there is a one thing that it is a social security, and
mm,
above
mm.
50,000, below 15,000 is on the actual that we will deduct PF 12% from each side, and obviously there is some
Absolutely.
administrative charges 1.1%, and
Absolutely.
above 15,000, it is depends on the employer and employee,
Optional.
optional.
Yeah. It's
So it is
also optional if you want to actually then get PF deduction. Now they have actually, earlier on, no, but now it is optional. Now, gratuity from the cost CTC, payment of gratuity is what? Certain percentage of 4 point,
81.
so I think,
4.81.
yeah,
81.
yeah,
Yeah.
4.81. Likewise, you can't say, fine, I have a choice whether to give a maternity leave or not. But under the Maternity Benefit Act, you have to give 3 months of leave. And of course, you have to also give s- leave with salary for your earned leave, and also for your vacations, which are public holidays. If not, if you make them work, you have to give pay twice the amount, and also one off on another day. So these are the various things. And last but not the least, your tax structure. Why is tax also very, very important for a compensation person, that he should know about it? I'm not talking about the personal tax. I'm talking about the compensation he gets. So it's very, very important for you as a compensation person to understand the tax, because you need to structure the salary, because how much is he going to get in hand is what matters to the employee. So if you are not able to understand, hey, what are those elements or components which give you 100% tax off, or what are those with partial tax, or what are those elements which will actually call for or attention for fully tax. So you need to make this salary structure the salary in such a way that the net salary which at the end of the month which an employee gets is high, taking into consideration all the tax exemptions. So you have to incorporate all the elements. We'll look into that in just a short while. All right. Let us come to collective bargaining. Wherever there are unions, then what happens? Anybody who's working in a unionized kind of an environment? Yeah. Anybody who's working in a unionized kind of an environment, can you tell me what is the role of this union leader? What does he do typically?
Though I have worked in manufacturing setup, but not
Right.
directly involved in a trade union, but what they have given us a charter of demands, like the wage or the bonus, and then we'll sit for a discussion or the negotiation. It can be bipatriate or tripatriate. So that's all I know actually.
Absolutely. So the significance of the unions is that typically what happens, uh, the workers have a union leader, so they collectively organize themselves, and the management also is prepared to negotiate with the union leader, which is a part of the trade union, so that they do not have to negotiate with every worker. So they collectively come together and then they negotiate, which is called a wage settlement. Maybe it could be once in 2 years or it could be once in 3 years. And let me tell you, the trade union leaders, they do much more detailed job as in compared to even the managers. They will find out market data, they'll find out everything, and then they will come prepared for a wage negotiation. So the advantage is that they collectively come together, which impacts, and it's a win-win kind of a situation. Okay. Yeah, when we talk about demographic changes, what does it mean? In today's times, organizations, you have what? We call it as diversity and inclusion. So you have aging workforce, you have younger generations, you have gender diversity, etc. So your compensation also should be flexible in such a way, like the kind of benefits you are giving. So you can't have the same benefits being given to a younger generation, which you want to give to an older generation. If a younger generation is looking at what? Short-term benefits. Quick. I don't want long-term. I'm not here to stay for long-term. So therefore, you need to have flexibility. So today you have, when you talk about benefits, you have flexibility in terms of choosing your benefits so that the employee can feel that there is value in whatever benefit is being given by the employer. Okay. Like for example, Sagar says, hey, I really want to, keep learning. I want to go for a lot of certification courses, etc. But the organization's giving you a kind of a gym facility. You will say, I'm not a gym guy. I don't want to go to a gym. But if they give me, sir, this benefit of doing what is it? Going for furthering my education, furthering my certification, I'll be very glad. So you are giving the flexibility of choosing whatever benefits you are wanting. Okay. Yeah. Then when we are talking about the economic factors, what are some of the key significant things which happen? Like somebody said, yes, we spoke about what? Inflation. So in compensation, when there is inflation, what do you do? Hey guys, all of you are real senior people. So what do you do when you have inflation? Or how do you compensate the employee for inflation?
We map
Huh?
it with the inflation percentage.
Absolutely. So you actually then you are taking into consideration the inflation index and then raising the salary. Say, for example, year on year, when you're giving your increments, you're not only giving the percentage of increment, but you're also factoring in that inflation index. Why? Because the product or the value of 1 rupee, what was previous year, huh? You don't, you want that the employee should at least get the value, if not spending more, at least if not more, equal, right? Because of inflation, maybe your buying power, it gets reduced, so you are factoring the inflation. So in most of the organizations, when there's a downside and the it's bad, then what happens, they give you, they may forego your increment, but they will definitely add the inflation percentages. Okay, then most importantly, we were talking about something called the supply and demand. So in the market, if there is a acute shortage uh, of certain technologies or for certain skill sets, and the demand goes up, what do you do typically? Obviously it is governed, so a job which is in high demand and the supply is less, you will have to what, go by the market, whatever is governed, whatever is the price, the market price. But typically, what happens when there is such a situation, organizations look at it, they do not factor in increase of increment, but what we call it later on, we'll be talking about it, a market linked retention bonus. Have you heard of this? Or a hot skill allowance. Anybody who's heard of that?
Yeah,
So,
yes.
so
Yes,
that
yes.
maybe after a year or two, the you have a huge supply. Then, if you actually increase it in your increment, and then you will have to bear the wage cost till the employee is there. So you make it as a uh, consolidated, you just give it as a bonus, maybe for a year, maybe for a two, because this year Java is in demand. Maybe next year AI technologies, sometime again cloud. So going by the market intelligence, whatever is the demand and the supply is very acute, then you start giving some kind of a bonuses. Okay. When we look at social changes, I want to bring to your notice very interesting thing. Look at 20 or 30 years ago when your parents were working. Typically, they work what? That old work-life paradigm. What does it mean? That they would work at best for one organization. Do you remember your parents working for 5 organizations, 10 organizations? If you worked for Tatas, you worked all your life for Tata. Huh? Typically, they would join and retire, right? That was the paradigm. At best, maybe two, but typically. But now what's happening? Can anyone tell me now what's happening?
The
Hey
changes,
guys, all of you. Huh?
job changes are more frequent, maybe 1 or 2 years, depending upon technology, depending upon skills and all
So
of
why
that.
are they
It's
frequent? Where
Mhm.
do they go then? Why do they leave organizations and go?
Not essentially, but maybe because, I mean, within the industry, outside the industry, depending upon their skills, depending upon the demand and all of that, wherever the pay is more, the inclination is towards that.
And even
Okay,
they're
apart
taking
from that,
leaves or sabbaticals even to enjoy their life, even to
yeah. Apart
fulfill the
from that,
education part and
absolutely,
certification
Vinita,
also.
you're spot on. So apart from that, a lot many times, what kind of people are coming in? People are coming at a fairly young age also after graduation, or in fact, if you go to ITS industry, even after 12th, or we taken people after just 12th. So what is happening? They want to, maybe for a sabbatical, wanting to take a break, or maybe they want to further their education, right? Or maybe they want to go abroad, or maybe they want to do an MBA. So if you actually do a survey when people are leaving jobs, etc., and or maybe they don't want a full-time job, they want to actually work a part-time job, 4 hours, this entire gig economy coming up. You know, we don't want to be full-time employees. We want freedom. Everybody is talking about space and freedom also. So therefore, when you look at such things, what kind of a signal does it send for an employer? What does it mean for us? What are organizations doing? Considering that in today's the Generation X and millennials want to, take breaks, shift jobs, etc. So what is that? What is that organizations are doing? Any idea?
Companies are even becoming flexible. They are also hiring freelancers. They are also even giving ready
Absolutely.
for giving those breaks to the employees and
Absolutely.
even
People who are leaving for education, they are ensuring that don't leave. You can do an MBA. We are going to support you. 50-50 you pay, we'll do that. They're sending you for higher education. Go do your education. Come back. Especially high performers. You don't want to leave them. You come back and we'll put you on a higher grade. Is it happening or no in your organizations? Hmm?
not mine, but yeah, I have heard about this.
No, no. In the market, yes,
It is
definitely it's
happening.
happening
Yeah.
a lot because you don't want to lose talent. Eh? So they are giving you flexibility. They are giving you what? If you don't want a full-time job, all right, part-time, few hours, of course, depending on the nature of the job, because not all jobs can become part-time, depending what jobs can be looked at, flexibility, right? Or change in the shifts, or making few hours. If you notice in, like for example, simple, most of the women workers when they go on a maternity leave, you know, oh my God, it's a full time job, so we really can't go back because who's going to take care of the child? IBM. IBM was the one which pioneered saying that, hey, women workers actually are highly productive. We don't want to lose them. So they gave them their policies were so women centric that they gave flexibility. They said, you just come in 2 days or you only do 60%. But that doesn't mean that if you're doing 60%, you'll get the same salary. You will get 60%. So you can downscale. So adaptability and aligning to what the employees were wanting. Okay. So therefore it's a win-win to understand because ultimately it is what retention. You want to attract the best talent. So if your policies are also aligned with the needs of the employees or with the needs of the talent, then you are able to then it's called employer branding. Okay. Any question, then you can definitely. And a very interesting case on this is in today's times, we call them as portfolio workers. If you notice, one of the biggest costs in organization is wage cost. It typically is about in manufacturing, it is about I think 10 to 15%. In an IT, it is about 30 to 40. It can go up to 60 also. So it's a big wage cost, operational cost. Now, if you want to reduce the cost, you need to have various ways of reducing it. So, most of the organizations, like for example, where I was leading, we came out with very many innovative ways. Like what? See, for example, in your HR department, simple example, you take an employee for a full time and make him do all this compliances of statutory PF and gratuity and all that. He can make mistakes and you're not happy with it because you have to collate the data, you have to go to the commissioner, you have to submit the data, etc. While, in fact, we have done that. While you can actually take retired people who are physically fit, etc., maybe he can come as a contract worker or on a retainer basis, maybe once or twice in a month. He can do the job very well because he knows the job very well. Likewise, what happens? We've also done we've also taken in our, when I used to be heading the HR for Tata Business Support Services, we've taken people who have retired from banking services. In IT, uh, we had high attrition, especially at a manager level, because highly competitive salaries. Now, the wage cost continuously, you can't have high wage cost. Now, how do we retain people? So we said, okay, let us just change. Let us get retired banking officers or army officers who are short service selection. You have this short commission. They are there in the army for 10 to 15 years. Okay. So we took them at much lesser salary, almost maybe 60% of the salary. But what did they have? They had discipline, they had maturity and people management. By giving them booting for the technical skills for 3 months and 6 months, they were up and about, and we were able to really retain them because salary was not a concern for them. They would get some, the retired banking people would get their pension, the army people would get their pension. So salary was not at all a concern. So they were interested in good work and wanting to work again, a second innings. So we did various kind of things. So likewise, I want to share one very, very good example from the organization. Satyam, I don't know how many of you heard of Satyam Computers, the erstwhile Satyam Computers. Now it is Mahindra Tech. Have you anybody heard of Satyam? Okay.
Yeah.
Now the
Yes,
Satyam
yes.
actually started a PPP model, that is public private model called 108, which is 104 and 108. What does the numbers mean? They started emergency service ambulances. So they started something called emergency medical service. So you call this number one toll free 104 at so this ambulance would immediately come, whether he's sick in a house or an accident, would pick up and then take him to the nearest hospital. So likewise, they also started something called um, um, research. I mean, doing some kind of a medical research and reach to the remotest corner by having something called a 104 medical system, where they had paramedical staff and also set up call centers with doctors. So anybody could call that number and there would be medical counseling. They would counsel, they would treat the patients and they could take medicine. Now, there was huge attrition in this. It's called HMRI 104. Now, there was huge attrition because they took young doctors whose aspirations were very different. Where would they go, young doctors? Where would they go? Anybody? Typically, where would they go? They would like to go for higher education. Typically, they would like to go for government jobs. So now I was involved in that. So what did we do? We actually looked at physically good specialists, good doctors from all the government hospitals. Okay. Now, at half the salary. Then we also give them a drop and pick up. And then, as a benefit, we said Saturdays, Sundays, they could actually have a recreation, bring their families, meet. Now, let me tell you guys, we did not have attrition at all, because they were very happy. They were not looking for high salaries. B, the best part was, what do you think? A medical doctor, young medical doctor, would take at least 12 to 15 minutes per patient. So the productivity was 12 to 15 minutes. But this specialist or this experienced doctor would only take 5 to 6 minutes to diagnose and prescribe. So what has happened? Tell me what has happened. Our productivity increased, right? B, no attrition. So all of you can go back, look at where what are those positions where I can really look at flowing back. This is called a career designation. That means people, even after retirement, few years they still want to participate, maybe for few years. Okay, so these are various initiatives you can actually look at when you want to reduce your wage cost. So compensation is not just looking at placement guys, looking at and then taking people and paying jobs. So these are all those innovative ways of how do we reduce the wage cost. Any clarifications? Sagar, any clarifications? Just give me a thumbs up, guys. Then we can quickly proceed. Huh?
No, I'm good.
Yeah. Tell me if we were talking about one of the important critical factor called globalization and technology. Okay. What's been the impact because of this? A, you are able to what? Shift the jobs from a high cost to a low cost, right? Then because of technology, you are able to automate. So when you do these things, what happens? Your wage cost reduces. Will you agree or not? But yes, there's a catch here. What I call it as economic tripwire. What is economic tripwire? Anybody who can take a guess? There are so many people senior. Okay, I'll give you. See, for example, when you so what is the cost of a software salary of a software engineer US typically? Say $60,000. So what would that translate into? How many in rupees? How much that would translate into? Guys, quick here. 60,000, just tell me an approximate figure. Huh?
48 lakhs.
Yeah, 40 to 50,000.
4 lakhs.
50, I mean 50, 40 to
40 to 50 lakhs.
50 lakhs, right? Yeah. When you shift that job to India, so in what range can you get a software engineer in India? Typically.
Starting matlab, experience 2-3 years, 10 to 12 lakhs.
Yeah. Say even lesser than that, you can get 5 to 10 lakhs, right? Depending, of course, an average software, right? So typically what happens is what is economic tripwire? So initially what happens, there will be a rise in salaries because if you are having many such mom and shop IT companies who are hiring software engineers who are the jobs being outsourced, you may have to raise the salary from say 5 to 10 to maybe even 15 lakhs or 20. But there is an inflection point where it does not seem viable at all. Are you with me? As a business proposition, it is not viable. That is called the economic tripwire. That means I cannot go beyond that salary because it is not viable. So typically what happens when you're outsourcing jobs, the HR guy and the business manager, they will work out what is the cost of my manpower, wage cost, etc. And there are also certain other costs which have to be factored in when you are actually outsourcing the job. So you still want to keep at least 20 to 30% margin, profit margin. Only then you will be taking on that job. So the economic viability where it doesn't really make any sense, that is called economic tripwire. Any clarifications here, guys? Understood? Yeah? Okay. So with this, we actually complete this module called factors impacting compensation. So we talked about 4 or 5 very key factors. One of them being the regulations. Then we talked about collective bargaining. Then we talked about what? Globalization, technology. We talked about social, demographic, all those changes. Okay. With this, we come to the end of this module. Then, okay. So we just finished external factors which impact compensation. Now we are coming to a very, very critical module called the basics. And, our good understanding of these basics will definitely impact the design of a salary structure. So what do we mean by compensation? Anybody? What is compensation?
It's about the
What is compensation?
salary or wages
Pardon?
which it's the salary or wages which we are giving to the person instead in the replacement of the work they have done for the organization.
Okay, so simply put, can I say that compensation is nothing but what an employer gives in exchange, both monetary and non-monetary, in exchange for the services. It could be effort, time, talent, competences, but everything, the inputs given by the employee for which he is rewarded, right? Both in terms of monetary and non-monetary. Okay, fine. So when we talk about compensation, typically, so in this module, we'll look at components of a compensation system and the equity theory, which really guides and becomes the basis for a entire compensation. Okay. So when we look at compensation system as such, we look at it as, just look at it here, direct pay, indirect pay. The compensation system is divided into direct pay and indirect pay. So direct pay is all about cash, money. And indirect pay is all about non-cash, non-monetary. Okay. So direct pay is all cash. Cash maybe in 2 years or 3 years as well. But cash will be there even in indirect pay, like for example, your gratuity. But it comes when you are retired, retirals, or maybe after 10 years, etc. So when we are dividing a compensation system, we are dividing it into direct pay and indirect pay. So direct is all about cash and indirect is all about non-cash or non-monetary. Let us first of all just look at direct pay. Okay. So when we talk about direct pay, we are looking at what? Anybody? I'll just use a whiteboard, which might help you all.
It's a fixed salary.
Total compensation paid to an employee in terms of fixed cost.
Okay. So let us look at it more structured way. Okay. So when we talk about, we are looking at direct pay. Okay. We said the first component is base salary. Okay. Base salary. Now, it can also be called as fixed salary. It can also be called as guaranteed salary. So this is the first component. What is it under direct pay? We can talk about base salary or fixed salary or guaranteed salary. So what does that mean? That means that this base or a fixed salary comes without any contingency. That means if you do this much, you will get it. So you have to pay him. It does not vary according to performance or result achieved. Are you with me?
Yes.
Very clear? That means if Sanjay does not perform up to the mark, yet he will get his guaranteed salary, fixed salary. Okay. And typical example is, at the end of the month, you get a salary, right? Whatever is a base salary, or even for a workman, if he has worked for a number of hours, so his hourly wages. So those are some of the examples of, could be a salary, which is fixed, or it could also be for the hours payment. Now, the second one, what we talk about is variable pay. So the variable pay is also cash, but it comes with a contingency. Means it comes with a qualification. That means, so it has many qualifications. It can come with what? The typical incentive. That means, like for example, a classic case, a salesman, if he makes 100 units, he will get X amount. If he makes 150 units, so that means this incentive is linked with what?
Performance.
Right?
Yeah.
Now we'll talk more about it. Now, next, it can also be with reference to what?
Business
Huh?
performance.
A merit. Yeah, we'll talk about it. I'm just talking about the various variable pays. Merit. When I say merit, it can be of two kinds. You know, it can be for skills, cross skills, or up skills. So when I said cross skill, what does it mean? Simple example. Auto manufacturer, say Volkswagen. So I take fitters. Okay, I give him a employment offer and say, but if you get a welder certification, you intimate to the academy, and from the day you have passed this welder certification, you will get an incentive, merit incentive, skill based incentive. Okay. Now, what do you think? How do you think the employer benefits by this? By giving a skill which he may not use, but I'm saying here you are a welder, but fitter. But if you get a welder's certification, I'll give you a certain incentive. How does the employer gain? Employee, of course, is getting an additional incentive, but increment. But how does the employer benefit?
So post certification, maybe the productivity will improve.
Just because he is getting a welder certification, will the productivity improve? He's
The
doing
cost
a
of
he's a fitter, but he's doing a welder certification. So essentially, when I'm actually asking people to get certifications in addition to what they are doing, what does it mean? It helps me. A, during absenteeism, say somebody a welder is not there, I can actually shift him to that job, right? It will help me in what? Ability to retain him, because he is actually looking it as, hey, I'm getting an additional incentive, and also I'm learning more. B, I don't have to hire equal number of employees for all skills. I can, because it could be seasonal. I need more builders. So what is it happening to the organization? They are able to shift to people. So that is why, if you notice, in any organization today, they are ensuring that people are cross skilled. Like, for example, sometimes in a software company, you are a coder. Also, you can be what, quality certified, so that you don't have to have a full-time employees for each and every job. Are you with me?
Yes.
So it helps organizations, A, for what? Absenteeism. B, reducing their wage cost by not having employees for every skill. C, also retaining their employees. Okay, that's cross skilling. What is upskilling?
So if I'm not wrong, the promotion, so he can manage, we can promote him to that
Promotion
particular.
is a title,
Some
promotion. Upskilling means, say, for
improve
example, I'll give you an
competency.
going next
example.
level, upgrading
Improve the
yourself to the next
competency.
level. So if I'm a
Fantastic,
HR business
fantastic.
partner, I'm
Uh,
doing a CHRO kind of a certification.
Fantastic. I'll give you an example first from a business example. Citibank, what does it do? It takes, it recruits BCom graduates, okay? And there is a career as an accountant, okay? And there is a career path for them. It says, hey, in 2 years, if you get your CAIIB, that is the part one, that is chartered accountancy, okay? You will get one incentive. And if you complete your CA in 5 years, you will become a accounts manager. But again, you will get another additional 2 increments. So what I'm doing, a career path, skilling for a higher job. But I can't just promote him without him being skilled, right? So I'm also telling him a path. So in this way, what am I trying to do? I'm actually ensuring that my top performers are retained. They see there is something at the end of this. There's a carrot for them. So that's my retention strategy, by showing them clearly. But I'll say, hey, at the 5 years, but you do your CAIIB part one, part two, but I don't incentivize them. What will happen? Then I will actually get better offer somewhere else and I'll go away. Huh? So you need to incentivize also. That's called upskilling. So you are creating something what I typically call it as human capital readiness. Human capital readiness. That means at any point of time, at any point of time, you are creating a talent pipeline where your strategic positions are always there, because you are not caught. I mean, suddenly your key people have left, and then you don't have anyone to fill in. You have to get from the market at a much higher cost. So any organization needs to have clear career path, at least for the strategic positions. But when I say strategic positions, how do you understand them? Are they only top management positions when I say strategic positions?
Not
Hey guys,
exactly. That may be the profile they have, which has some input for that decisions.
excellent. Not necessary. Why? Because, say, for example, if you go to Starbucks and Neha is going to Starbucks there, and whom does she meet? The guy who's the sales, the customer, the sales guy who's actually selling her the coffee, who talks to her, who understands her likes, tastes, etc., and then he will try to influence her to have the best of coffee, etc. He's a very important position there. Do you know the kind of training they are given, the kind of incentives, etc., etc.? Because customer delight is one of their key key
Kind of
Performance
like
indicators.
Starbucks
USP,
thrives on customer delight,
USP.
right? They want to excel, not just uh, customer delight. So, therefore, then what will you do? You will definitely start having a talent pipeline. You can't afford to have high attrition there. Say, for example, I will have high attrition in such strategic positions. So, what I'm trying to say is your front people also can be strategic positions. Whoever makes a difference to your operations, not necessarily the top management positions. Okay. So definitely you need to have some kind of a talent pipeline, human capital readiness for all your key positions. Okay. How do you do that? You have to identify the key competencies required, ensure, and when I say key competencies, along with all the what certifications, etc., and what level, and then train them up and give them incentives along the side. So this is called upskilling. Then there is something called, we talked about it, hot skill or market link retention incentive, or you can also call it as bonus. Whom do you give? All those skills. Say, for example, today in the market, Java is becoming very, very important because there is huge demand for Java. A lot of people have come and set up startups. So what will happen suddenly? Java people, whoever has those, they will be demanding for more salaries, right? So, and if you are actually having Java as one of the technologies, then you will have to take cognizant of the fact that, hey, then for all my high performers or whatever average performers, I need to give certain amount of bonus. Now, this bonus could be what? For 1 year, 2 years. Okay? Hot skill bonus. Is this very, very clear, guys? MLRB, hot skill bonus. Now, there's another important variable pay we give. Anybody what is that variable pay which we give? Say, for example, it's an ITS organization. It works at night. Okay. So I'm giving a night shift allowance. What is this called? What is this? Huh? This is called,
Hardship allowance.
somebody already I was able to, huh? But why am I not giving it in the as a part of the salary?
Depends on case to case, right? Not everybody will get it.
What, night shift allowance?
So it may
Hardship,
be that people may rotate to night shift to day shift.
if a person is going to rotate and after 3 months, after 6 months, he's going to go to a day shift job, then what do you do? If you're going to put it as a part of the salary, unless and until the entire organization is working at night, like I know some staffing companies, and even some staffing companies work only at night, then the salary also will be factors in such a way, because if they're also working at night, that hardship entire thing will be as a part of the salary itself, because then it even when you have to, when it goes to payroll, hardship allowance, etc., more the elements, more the time consumed. So you want to make it, keep it simple as well. So hardship is given when two individuals, say for example, there are in a payroll, two HR payroll guys are working. One guy is working only in the company, and the other guy is required to go on every payroll day 50 miles away, take the cash, go disburse to a unit and come back. But if I'm giving the same salary to these two guys, what happens? It is inequity, in the sense there is no individual equity. Two people doing the same job, but one guy is doing much more. He's going, bringing something. So what happens? You need to balance. You need to give him something more. So what do you do then? You give him some kind of a hardship allowance. Okay, because he may be there for 3 months rotation. Then after that, somebody else. So typically, if you notice, whenever, like for example, can you give me some common examples of hardship allowances, guys, in the banking?
Could being in a remote location also be a reason to give a hardship allowance?
Doesn't remote being in remote situation, isn't it hazardous and some kind of a hardship, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it can be covered under hardship
Can
allowance.
can be, no, it is a
Okay, okay.
hardship allowance. Okay, like for example, rig allowance. So in some places they also give you leave. Like for example, people who are working in the merchant navy, you have a 3 month salary, 3 months vacation also, because of the hardship they go through. Teller allowance, cashier, that is, he's handling extra duties, so he gets a teller allowance. Can you think of one hardship allowance in your organization? Anybody? Sagar?
Yeah, people who are working in extreme weather conditions like Jammu and Kashmir, or let's say
Yeah. Occupational,
Northeast.
sensitive, absolutely, location, sensitive areas. Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, you know, crane allowance. So this is very clear. Great. Now we are coming to. Can I just rub this, because I want to take a little more time? This is where is very, very important. These are all list of allowances you can make out easily. I want to talk about incentive, which is linked to performance. Can I just erase this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now we are coming to incentive, which I talked about in the first instance. Incentive, right? Which is linked to performance, which is typically, I told you, pay for performance, right? You do more work, you get more. Now, incentive for performance can be at what? At an individual level. Will you agree? A classic example is a sales guy. Can it also be at a team level?
Yeah.
Hmm? So you have at a team level, team awards. Like for example, even somebody is in construction. Somebody is in construction, right? Like say for example, there's a project. Who's in construction? Forgot somebody.
Yeah, me.
Huh?
me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So there is a project, and now the project has a completion time, and various people are working. Now you need to motivate them, incentivize them, ensure that there is a timely completion. So therefore, what happens? You will have what? Team level, team awards, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, like for
It could be
greenfield projects, brownfield projects, also maybe blue sky
exactly. It could be
projects.
also a combination of 60-40, like an individual also, and a team rewards. Okay. Then you have something called project, where project has timelines, and there are also certain SLAs, quality terms, etc. So you either get it or you don't get it. It is not that if a project has to be completed in 90 days, and there is a project award there, and you complete it in 100 days, you will still get 60% or 40% of the project allowance. No, you won't get, because it will be drafted in such way that if you complete it on time, you get it. Okay. And why do they do that? You want to incentivize them so that they get motivated to complete the project on time, because there will be delay penalties if you don't do that. Okay. So that they are motivated. Now, at an organizational level, you have something called what? Today, this year the company has made a profit. Okay, 5%. I will say with a certain percentage of base salary, I'll share the profit. It may not be the same next year. So again, what I'm trying to say, the percentage of variable pay is not necessary that every month you'll get the same amount like the fixed salary or the base salary. It will vary depending on your accomplish or achievement of your task or performance. Very clear? Okay, that's one aspect. Now, another aspect to this is, when you as an HR manager or a compensation manager, you have to design incentive plans, variable pay plans. Okay. Now, when you have to design incentive plans, very often asked question, or very often I had this every time I was a CHR of an organization, that, ma'am, why should HR have incentives? Huh? Variable pay. Huh? For the other department, it's okay. Why should we have? You should give us 100% salary, no variable pay, 100%. Okay. Do you think you also came across these situations where people would say, there's no logic, why should we have? How do we decide? How do we design incentive plans? And most of the time, most of the time, incentive plans also fail. You know, so we don't achieve the intent or the purpose for which we have designed. For example, what determines the amount of percentage of variable pay? Typically, what happens at a, you will say 10 to 15% in variable pay, or 15 to 20% variable pay. But what determines that? I'll first give you an example. Say there are two salespeople. Okay, a salespeople. I'm giving a sales. Okay, in a retail, means a small shop, grocery shop also, you can say grocery, or retail shop, where he's making people taste something, maybe an ice cream or something, and trying to sell. Okay, you have to look at what a high performer. So a shortcut I'm giving, a high performer, he can sell, if he is able to sell 150 units, you for you. Okay. Then I'll keep your 150. Okay. Then what happens? Average performer will be able to sell only 120. High performer HP, AP is average performer. Now, think of an insurance agent. Here, a high performer is able to sell, say, 50 lakhs insurance. An average performer is able to sell, at best, say, only 10 lakhs. Okay? Now, when you design an incentive plan, you have to, first of all, why do they fail? You have to look at what I call as what? Performance flexibility. Performance for designing. What determines an incentive plan? How much percentage? This is performance flexibility. What does it mean? To tell you, put it in easier terms, if the job does not have the, flexibility of performing, then even if you put 20% variable pay, 30% variable pay, then how is he going to perform? There is no flexibility there of performing. For example, again, I'll give you a very interesting example here. So who has a higher flexibility in the sales guy in a retail shop or a sales guy in a insurance? Please, this is a very important factor. You have to look at the ratio of a high performance to the average performance. Who has a higher flexibility?
Retail shop.
Retail guy? When a higher performer is only 100, so the difference between higher performer and average performer is very less. Whereas an insurance agent can, a higher guy can really maximize, whereas an average. So that means in this job, there is scope for performing. I'll give you another example and I want you all to do HR, because most of you are in HR. I want you to tell me in whose role, there are two roles, recruiter. Then the other role is payroll. If I'm going to put for both of them 20% variable pay, tell me, you think I'm being rational? Whose job has more flexibility?
No.
Huh? Quick.
I think
Recruiter.
recruiter.
Huh? Recruiter.
Recruiter.
Obviously, because he has if he's a good recruiter, he can reduce the wage cost, he can fill in more numbers. But a payroll guy's job is limited. At best, what I can look at best what all?
Accuracy of the
I was just about
yeah,
zero errors.
errors. Yeah,
That means accuracy. So tolerance level, I'll say 95%, right?
right.
Then on time, okay. But for a recruiter, reducing cost, he can do this. So there is more flexibility. So he will be motivated if I give him what more. I'll say, hey, 30% will be a variable. He will increase. But if I give him just guaranteed pay and only 5%, the ability to perform is there, but you are restricting me. I hope you got it, guys. That's why you will
Yes.
see in organizations, production, sales and marketing. These are jobs where there is performance flexibility. But jobs like HR, finance, and IT admin, where there is not much of a flexibility, you will have just 5 to 10% of variable pay. That is because you want to connect, to the bigger picture so that he can collaborate and there is interdependency, etc. He should not think my job and only my job. So he should also be collaborating. I hope you are with me. So we talked about this. When you are designing, you have to keep in mind the performance flexibility. Okay. So we talked about one is direct pay, that is a base salary. Then the other is variable pay, where we talked about what? 4 kinds. That is hardship, upskilling, cross-skilling, and then market link to retention bonus. And then we talked about incentives with reference to performance at an individual, team level, project, organization, etc. Now, in the same direct pay, there is something called deferred pay. Yeah, let me go back to the yeah. So we talked about hardship, we talked about incentives, we talked about extra skills, we talked about hot skill, merit pay. So the third component or element is deferred pay. So what is deferred pay? That means I'm deferring the payment. For example, stock purchases or ESOPs. What do? You give him stocks, but can you sell them immediately? You give them at a lesser price, and can you sell them immediately? There is a vesting period, right? Hey, today Sanjay is a very good worker, so therefore I'm giving a letter of intent where you will say, okay, 100,000 shares at this particular price you are given, which is much lesser than the market. But you can only sell them 50% after 2 years. Why do you do that? You are saying this is a retention strategy so that you are able to retain your high performers, for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Okay. Retention bonus. I'm sure some of you have seen in your own, critical positions, good high performers being retention bonus. You want this guy to stay for 3 years, so you give him a retention bonus. But will you give him all the entire bonus at one go? How do you pay them? What is the payment plan?
Once in 6 months usually. Stagger
So
it.
you will look at it, right?
Hmm.
You could be 6 months, 1 year, so 10% or 15% now, later on 20%, because you want him to stay. But then this guy, after 2 years, he leaves. But his retention bonus is for a period of 3 years. So does it mean that, oh, you stayed for 2 years? No, you will give this much. No, you're not going to get that rest of the amount, right?
That's right.
It's a retention strategy. So, retention bonus, joining bonus. I have told, Shweta Singh has been given a joining bonus of say 5 lakhs if you come and join our organization. So, within 2 months. So after 2 months, 10 days, she says, oh, I'm sorry, I cannot join. Do you think they will give her 80% of the joining bonus, Shweta?
No,
Huh? You
no, no.
either join and get it or no, right?
Yeah. And in fact, a lot
So,
of companies, they, there's a clause. If we are paying you upfront this much, and if you don't join, then X percentage of your CTC or the joining bonus, or maybe double the joining bonus, you have to return back.
yeah, there is a condition as well, right? If you don't stay, you join, and then in 3 months you go away. There is a condition there. Okay. Yeah. What is annuity? So annuity is a plan. It is actually a tax saving plan for senior, middle managers, top management, where typically what happens, because they are sitting on high salaries, there's a huge amount of salary which goes towards the tax. So to help them to not reduce, but this, rather than the tax amount of tax, some amount, not the entire amount, getting deducted, the company, it's a company framed policy. We'll say we are offering an annuity plan for you. So that some portion of that amount can be invested as an annuity plan. So what does the company do then? Then it actually invests in a life insurance corporation, LIC. So, but you cannot take it immediately when you resign. There is certain conditions. 50% can be taken after 4 years or 3 years, and then another 50% is given in installment. But this is a, rather than the amount getting deducted as tax, some portion of it, if you're paying high tax, can be saved, can be invested in the form of a annuity plan. Is this clear? So this is a tax saving plan. Okay. Any questions, guys, here with respect to direct pay? Please give a thumbs up. Quick. No thumbs up, nothing. Any client? Okay. I can get one. All right. Great. I can't see Sagar's thumbs up. Sagar is busy. Huh? All right. Okay. Now we're coming to indirect pay. That means non-monetary. Okay. So non-monetary, I'm sure all of you are familiar. It looks at first of all, mandatory or compliance kind of a programs, right? So what we talked about, some of the protection programs, whether it is pertaining to insurance, medical insurance, etc. Then organizations, protection, payoff, gratuity, all that. Then pay for time not worked, which is mandatory, like maternity benefits, maternity leave, and earned leave, etc. But over and above that, organizations are also giving paternity leave, which is not mandatory. Okay. Then they also give emergency leave. They also give some kind great vacations, sabbatical leaves, etc. Why do they give this over and above their mandatory things? Quick.
For
Some
retention,
organizations,
for retention, and even it is worked as extra
absolutely.
benefits.
So maybe when they're benchmarking their benefits with the other comparators, they also do that. So in order to retain their employees, because when employee comes in, he's always trying to compare what is he getting vis-a-vis what he was getting or what the others are getting in the market, right? Okay. Now, under perquisites and services, most of the organizations are given car and recreational, financial planning, low-cost free meals, etc., etc. Now, typically what happens with reference to services and perquisites, like say, for example, a retail merchandise, what do they do typically? Retail stores. They give their merchandise, etc., some amount of it at a discount. Do they or do they not? What do banks do to their employees?
Less
What do
interest
banks do?
rates, loans on less
Interest
interest
free
rates.
also?
Maybe interest
Or
free.
subsidized, reduced
Subsidy.
loans, subsidized loans. In fact, they also get higher interest as employees. Okay. Now, even auto components people. So every organization, like for example, insurance companies. So depending on whatever industry they are into, they give some kind of a discounts. Now, today, after the COVID, most of the organizations are focusing and emphasizing on one very critical element. What is that? Under services and perquisites, employee wellness. Employee wellness not only limited to just your medical or physical, but also to what? Mental, emotional, spiritual. So you have all physical fitness equipments, also mental. Like in fact, some of the organizations have allowed 2 psychiatrist consultings. Not only they call counselors, in fact, I have seen we had counselor coming in almost twice a week, and being knowledge-based ITS organization, that is Sutherland, we have seen a correlation between mental with the improvement of mental, how the performance productivity has improved, attritions were grievances were reduced. So employees are focusing on, especially with the millennial, especially with the kind of younger workforce, employee wellness becomes very, very critical. All right. Okay. Having said that, now the best part is as a competent manager, what do you, how much of direct pay, how much of indirect pay, how do you decide on that? Compensation strategy, how do you decide on that? Base pay, variable pay, etc. So typically, depending on the industry and of course, depending on your benchmarking practices. Typically, what happens? hmm, You decide on, hey, what kind of an industry I have, and we'll talk about the compensation design as such at some point of time. Okay. And depending on my own business strategy, which is linked to something called, which I will also talk in detail when I do market, called value discipline. And I'll give you a simple example. Say, for example, my value discipline is operational excellence. That means what? Maruti, Toyota, all these companies are in operational excellence. That means I have to increase productivity. I have to be very, very efficient. I need to have SOPs. SOP is standing operation procedures, process centric. Okay. So these organizations, what happens? Quality, uh, cost, time, all these matter. So what happens then? I need to have my wage costs much lesser. Only 5 to 10% of my strategic positions will have very high wage costs. For example, if I was Walmart, it's an operational excellence company. And what would be a one strategic position for it? The supply chain guy, procurement guy. So I might pay very, very high, but other positions I will be paying very less average salaries. So depending on, like for example, Google, it's a product development company. It's product leadership. I need the best of talent. So I'll be paying very high salaries to coders, etc. Customer delight. So that means I want people who are high EQ. So depending on the compensation strategy, I decide on what should be a percentage of. I'll play with these, elements, direct pay and indirect pay. What amount? For if you have noticed, the Tatas, I worked in Tatas. Do you know their salaries are like not top of the market? They are at maybe 65th to 75th percentile. They pay less salaries, right? But their focus is more on what? Indirect pay. That means perks, benefits, long-term benefits. Why? Why they want their employees to stay for long retention. They want their employees to stay for long. So because they want them to stay for long, they'll focus on long-term benefits. They'll give them the house, etc. Now think of it, but their focus is on what? Giving lot of what? Training them. Buy or build model. So Infosys, what it says, I will take people at an entry level, I will build them. I don't want to go to the market and buy at a very high wage cost. So it's a mix of what is my strategy. Depending on that, I will then proportionately look at direct pay, indirect pay, even base pay, variable pay. Say, for example, even between base pay and variable pay, if I was an organization like a retail store, typically how would I proportion myself? Will my base pay be very high and variable pay less, or will my wherever there is a sales focus, you want variable pay to be higher because you want people to sell more. Okay, so we'll come to that when we are doing a compensation strategy and look at certain, uh, in fact, examples, real-time organizations. Okay, so the any questions here, guys? We'll move on then. Okay. So in fact, I've spoken about all this, the key components: base pay, variable pay, right? And um, um, when we are structuring the salary at a later point of time, I'll talk about the tax as well. But just to give you a little, so in tax exemptions, typically HRA is given 40 to 50% of the base salary, depending on whether you're a metro or a right? There are only three elements. Then these days you don't give medical and convince you have a standard deduction of 50,000. Okay, either you take that, you can't have both, this or that. Then you have something like, what is it, gift allowance, which is 5,000 rupees. Then you have, of course, Sodexo, which, rather than putting it in the salary, you are to reduce your tax burden and get more as a salary in hand, you give Sodexo. Now, I'll give you a very interesting example. Hmm. I don't know whether to tell you that company's name. Airtel. I think it was Airtel. Yeah. In their offer letter to all the employees, they said they will give them what, free call time of 2,000 rupees. Okay. Free call time of 2,000 rupees. Now the tax man came after 3 years or something like that. And he said, what is this? 2,000. Do you think this 2,000 rupees will be taxed every month, per month? Will be taxed or non-taxed? Tell me. Quick, quick.
If it is not a reimbursement, it should be taxed.
Great guy. They gave it as an incentive and it was not a reimbursement. So therefore the company had to bear the tax liability. Because even the employee was not told about it. So they bore. Also, many a times, what do we do? Like in one of the companies where we went to help, everybody was given a conveyance allowance. Now the taxman first of all said, okay, fine, tell me who are the people who are on, in the office, and who are the people who are actually working offshore. Now, this what happened, it was a practice, irrespective of whether the guy was working or he was outside offshore, everybody was getting a conveyance allowance. Now, you can't have, your daily allowance, which you get outside, dime allowance, and also this. So we need to be very, very cautious, especially, when it comes to such things.
And one thing, even we were also struggling for, like, there is a perquisite called company car. So
Yes.
even though we are a like again back office here in Jaipur, and our people, they are just coming and going back to the office. So but the people are asking about this company car because it saves a good amount of tax as a petrol allowance and
Right.
all.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but what we read and even consulted from our this financial consultant, so they didn't advise us because it's we are not visiting any customers, we are not going outside the office, so that's why we should not have this thing as a tax vote. So, even what is your suggestion on that?
There are no two ways about it. If you are saying company car for the purpose of, visiting clients, etc., it's a reimbursable, no tax. Okay. But if you are giving a company car from house to office, all right, and you are also giving conveyance allowance,
No, we
you
are not
can't do,
giving
you can't have
conveyance
two the
allowance,
things.
but
You
whatever
can't
the
do two things.
whatever the law is saying that even a person can use it for personal and official reasons. So personal thing is also mentioned in the tax, but definitely it should have some official reason. So that's why we didn't bring it.
Really, what happens, you see, you use some amount of it as personal, but you show it as it's all official, but typically what happens. But if it comes to payment, you cannot use a company card for personal purposes, right?
That's how we have to. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will be sending you all these things so that you have a good idea. And these we talked about: sales commission, merit pay, incentive pay, profit sharing, spot awards, as at an individual level, at a team level, okay, and even at an organization level. All right. Okay. Reach out to me. In today's times, we're talking about something called a total reward strategy. How many of you heard of total reward strategy? This has been coined by a company called Not for Profit World at Work. A total reward strategy. Essentially, what does it mean? A total reward strategy. It says, hey, it takes into consideration all the rewards, both transactional and relational. What is transactional? Between the employer employee, whatever is monetary in terms of what compensation and benefits. So these are two elements which are transactional. Relational means the other ones like work life, performance and recognition. Then we're talking about development, career, all that development activity we do. Huh? So all these elements. So it is from the entry level to the exit level, everything which we do for the employee is taken as a total reward by the employer, right? And ensuring that they don't act as what silos, integrated in such a way, aligned in such a way that they make a substantial difference to the employee, which we call it as employee value proposition, EVP. Okay. So that, why do you want to do it? So that the employee is satisfied, engaged, and he will achieve the business goals. So in today's times, you are not just looking at compensation only, benefit only. No. Definitely in the entire total reward strategy, compensation and benefits stand out. They are the key. But the rest of the items which we talk about as work life, performance and recognition, development and career opportunities, which are actually related, relational, are also important, so that the objective is what? To ensure that you attract, retain, motivate, engage the right kind of people to achieve business results. Okay, that's the essence of it. So, as I said, when we are talking about total reward strategy, we are not talking just in terms of one element. So, these are 5 elements, which are what? The compensation, benefits, work life, performance and recognition, development, and career opportunities. This is what I talked about. Okay. So, in every, so like for example, so when we look at total reward strategy, it says, hey, in compensation, look at, everything in terms of fixed pays, variable pay, and then you have short-term incentive pays, long-term incentive pays, then the premium pays, then variable pays. So a list of inventory is there. Then again, you are looking at benefits. You are looking at all kinds of benefits which are with reference to health, with reference to pay for time not worked, retirement, everything. Then we are looking at work-life balances. Again, we are looking at what? All kinds of things, caring for dependents, financial support, cultural change initiative. So there's a list of inventory which looks at it. Okay. Likewise, in performance and recognition, we are looking at what kind of performance management process we have, what kind of a goal setting, what kind of awards do we do, recognition do we do. So it talks about the entire thing. And then in the end, we talk about development opportunities, which could be learning opportunities, which could be advancement opportunities, coaching and mentoring, etc. So there is a list of, inventory. So organizations, what do? They don't just choose compensation or only benefits. Because if you are spending a lot of money in compensation, paying high wages, then what about the rest? So they actually bucket it and bundle it in such a way that the employee is motivated to join you. Because the objective is what? To attract the right people and motivate the people and to retain them. So therefore, most of the organizations in today's times are trying to look at a total reward strategy rather than just saying, hey, we can pay any money and compensation is good enough to retain my people, to engage my people. It is not so, because not every employee is motivated by just extrinsic factor. You know what is extrinsic factor? Maslow's hierarchy. When you look at, there are extrinsic factors and intrinsic factors which motivate. For example, Vinita. So she's sitting at 40 lakhs. The next day she'll get 50 lakhs, 60 lakhs. But after some time, money is not going to be a motivator at all. She'll say, hey, that's money. She needs something else, something to motivate intrinsically. So what is happening? So organizations are taking into consideration both intrinsic factors and extrinsic factors. Extrinsic is something what you give outside. It could be benefits, it could be compensation, it could be incentives. Intrinsic is what? better growth opportunities, better learning opportunities, better performance management ways of doing things. These are so that they are woven. The interplay of both these things will help to make a good employer branding and give a good employee value proposition. Are you with me, guys? Okay. Yeah. Now the most so for example, just look at Google. What do? They give very good salaries, they give stock options, but intrinsic, what do? They'll ask you, hey, 30% of the time you can do your any project of your own. So what happens if somebody wants to be an entrepreneur? They'll say you have that entrepreneur streak, you can do it here. So in fact, Google, most of their products are done by employees who actually took the initiative of doing something on their own. Intrinsic. Okay. Likewise, IBM also. IBM focuses on continuous learning, career progression, growth. So then people, what happens? They're able to not only help them to attract, but they are motivated to the work, engaged, and also able to retain them. So they're able to come out with very good product, and they're all the time having continuous learning. So upskilled workers. Yeah. Tatas. What do? There's a lot of what? They do a lot of community CSR activities. Apart from giving extrinsic, that is, benefits, health insurance, etc. They take care of them. Loyalty is there. So retirement plans, educational assistance, help them to really. So nobody leaves 20, 30 years. They are almost there, committed to the organization, right? Infosys, again, a learning organization. Intrinsically, they help employees to what? Align the interest with the company's performance. So they're able to innovate, do creative things. So these are some of the, some of the companies are actually using a total reward strategy model and ensuring that they are able to retain their employees not only by attracting and motivating, but also helping them to accomplish their, deep-seated passion, desires, etc. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Equity theory. One of the compensation objectives I said is, the compensation to be equitable. What is equitable? I want more participation now. What is equitable? Quick.
It is creating level playing field. You have to proportionately give the, you can say, allowances or the compensation as per the
Okay.
current
Equitable.
scenario of that particular
Okay.
person.
Sure. So equitable means fair. Say, for example, there are five, levels of people, 5 jobs are there. Are you paying fairly with reference to the effort of that job? Right? Are you paying fairly? Equitable, fair. Today, I think, in fact, in US, there is equity law. They have to be very fair. They can't ask what were you getting in your previous job so that we can start you just with a 10% more. No, you have to pay the salary, whatever the job commands. Okay, to be fair. No, we still haven't come to that. So, what is this equity theory all about? It was propounded by Adam Smith. He was a psychologist, he was also a philosopher. He said, say, for example, Pratay, he will not be motivated unless and until in his job, unless and until he sees that there is a balance between his input and output. Are you with me? That means what? Simply put, that means Pratya comes to office, he gives his time, he puts in his effort, he has certain education, he has competencies, he brings all this to the table. And what does he get? Some amount of salary, he gets a compensation. Okay. Now, unless and until the input is equal to output, he is not going to be motivated. That's what Adam Smith said that employees always, they are comparing the ratio of their input against their output. Are you very clear? Input and output. Output is salary, benefits, recognition. And input is your effort, skill, education. If you can see again, I've put it very, very clearly. So what are you doing? You are comparing. You are comparing input, your contribution to output. Now, how can you compare? Say Sagar has to compare his input to output. How will he compare? I have to compare my input to what I get. How will you compare, Sagar? Quick.
Internally or externally, how much my other people with same kind of amount they are putting, same kind of efforts
Excellent.
they are putting.
Who said this? Who said this? Yeah. So there are many ways. You will compare it. I'm an HR manager. I'm getting X amount of salary. Huh? And then you will say, similar industry, how much is that guy getting? I'll say, hey, I'm getting 20 lakhs and that person is getting 30. What did you do? You compared. What did you do? You compared. There's a comparison, referral. So you compared outside. Or you will compare it with, see, my input output. How is it to the another senior manager's input output? So you are either comparing it internally or comparing it externally or comparing it within two individuals who are doing the job. So excellent. So you are comparing your input output. So this is what we are looking at. See, my outcome to input ratio, if it is equal to what I'm comparing, that means what? There is equity. If I'm getting 40 lakhs and even in the market I'm getting 40, I'm very happy. Because I know that my input is equal to output. But what if Ashwin feels that, hey, my reward to contribution is lesser than what I'm comparing. Like, I'm getting 20 and in the market it is 30. So what has happened to the equation here? Here it is equal, and what has happened here? There is what? Inequity.
Inequity.
That means I'm not being paid equally. Right? So what will you do, Pratya? What will you do when you find that this kind of a thing is there, that I'm not being paid? Huh? As per the market, I'm being paid lesser. What will you do, Pratya?
Then
Hmm.
see, in terms of this thing, that if not getting, then I'll look for a change. And
You will definitely look for a change. That means what? I'm paying you X amount of base salary for 3 months or 6 months till the time you won't get a job. My productivity is less. No?
yes, right,
Or I'm going to ask for a raise.
right,
You will either reduce your contribution, that means less productivity because you're looking for other job. And in the meanwhile, you will also demotivate 5 other people. See, array, we are getting less salaries, right? Huh?
right,
Or what else you'll do? You could work hard, but that is unlikely.
right.
No? So you will quit. So have you noticed, if I have a workforce of 500 people and 400 people, 90% of the people are in a situation like the one I've just discussed, which is like a Pratya's state, what will happen to your productivity? The productivity is going zoom and your wage cost is still remaining. That means wage cost, you have to pay month on month, but there is no productivity. That means company will run into losses after some time. Yes or no?
Yes, yes,
So now, therefore, it is very, very important. Even if you have to ensure that yes, what is the market paying and can I be equitable? Now, are you understanding that yes, why compensation is very important? But say, for example, if this happens, that I am getting paid more than my comparator or to the referral, the referent person to whom I am comparing internally or externally, then what will you do? You will justify. You will come early, you will go late, you will work harder because you have said, "Arey, they're paying me more money," right? Will you do that or no?
Definitely.
Very unlikely that he will say, you're paying me more, please give me a pay cut. You won't ask that. No? Or what will you do? I've
I will.
noticed, say for example, huh?
So I will look for other opportunities, other areas where I
Why
can,
you're
work.
already getting more salary,
Yeah.
guys? But still you look for more opportunities then?
No, no, not more opportunities. I'm saying within the organization, if I get,
Huh.
I will enlarge
You
my
will
role.
justify and say, hey,
I
I'm
will
getting more.
justify. Yeah.
And so, but let me also tell you, when you get more, no, I've noticed in instances where I'm, so you will tell the other person, don't work, yeah, you will get your salary in any case. I'm telling you, it has happened. I've seen how, like for example, a driver who by the sure experience he gets about 50 or 60,000 rupees. Okay. And now another new entrant is getting only 20,000 rupees. He comes early, he goes back. The senior guy says, don't have to work so hard. You come on time, you leave on time. Why do you think he tells that? Tell me. Just tell me. Insecurity. I'm getting more, but my effort is not much. Maybe this guy, then they will say, hey, in any case, then let us actually, uh, get rid of this high wage cost people and let us get work from these people who are really working very hard and at less cost. And it happens in many organizations. So what happens typically in a BPOs or even in many other organizations, you know, the person's salary by sheer number of years of experience has gone up, but his productivity has plateaued. So he's at a higher wage cost, but the productivity is as much as a person who's been in the system for 2 years or 3 years. So typically, organizations, what stand do they take? They will try to either shift them to another department where they need, or they will say a good handshake will say, hey, they'll stop increments because you have reached at the end of the salary grade, etc. Because if they stay for more years, what happens? Productivity will be the same, but my wage cost will keep going up. That's called stay period. So we calculate that every business calculates stay period because it will impact their profit. Okay? Because the wage cost is not in correlation with the productivity. Any questions till here? Any questions? Now, having said that, now
So
what is
just
very,
one
very
question
important?
here.
Yeah.
Stay
Hmm,
period
hmm.
is calculated, you want to say every year to see who are the people who are overpaid.
Come again. Come again.
Is the stay period calculated annually to see who are the people who are paid more than the market?
No, 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 no. And typically, what happens? You're not talking about managers, etc. You're talking about the operational people, mostly associate level, TL level, etc. Okay. Now, what happens? Their chances of getting promoted to a manager is 1 out of 400 or 300, no? Because TL and then manager. Now, what happens? So at TL's at that level, they are staying there for 3 years, 5 years, etc. Now you start calculating in the first year, the person only gives you, in the first 3 to 6 months, 30% of productivity. In 1 year, he gives you at least 80%. But in the second year, he is able to do 100 to 120. And in the third year, he's speaking 150. But after that, his productivity level is almost plateaued, means he's not increasing his ability to produce more than that. But what happens every year after third year, every year he stays, my wage cost goes up. So we typically calculate number of people who are after third year. It is also linked to productivity. So after third year, how many people are there? And what is that level of productivity is almost, same, it will be there. So we will try to see, ensure there will be how many people, 5 to 10% or 15% people. We will either keep them for another year or two without any increase of increment. We'll talk about that. It's called the red circle. So we'll stop and only give a lump sum as performance bonus. And after 2 years, then because they will demotivate the others, then we'll shift them out. Either a handshake or we'll tell them go, we will help you with it, higher education, so that then they're able to be deployed in other departments. Okay, that's one part of getting some kind of a human capital readiness, ways and means. Okay, is it clear, guys?
Yeah, so by third year, the performance is peaking at
Yeah.
150%.
Typically,
Chances are the
uh,
person will get promoted, right, by then.
how many people in a BPO? Tell me, a
Not
manager
BPO, but
level?
I'm generally speaking.
No. You will have to take into account this is industry specific.
Okay.
Industry specific. No, you can't be general about it
Okay.
because every industry has some kind of a stay-in period. Depending on, if you are 80% of the workforce is only at that two levels, right?
Okay.
Because like for example, in a IT tech, in a product development, this kind of a situation does not arise.
Understood. Understood.
Hmm? Okay, all right. Okay, now having said that, so we talked about it, right? Change input, change outcome, etc., etc. There are three kinds of, when you observe this inequity, out of this, there are three kinds of equity switch as a compensation manager, the objectives of compensation. One is called internal equity. What is it? Internal equity. And when I say internal equity is what? How are jobs being paid internally? How is each job being paid in relation to the other jobs? Are they being paid fairly or not? Because where in organizations where they recruit people just by handshake or something, where they have not done some job evaluation exercise, etc., you will find that after some point of time that a senior manager whose effort is much less and whose responsibility is not much is getting higher salary as in compared to a manager. It will happen. Okay, that's the time then they start again rationalizing, doing a job evaluation, etc., changing everything. Internal equity. That is looking at how are jobs being paid within the organization, vis-a-vis the other, one job vis-a-vis the other. This is called internal equity, fairness in job. What is external equity? How are the jobs being paid vis-a-vis the market? Vis-a-vis the market. When I say market, same industry, your peer group comparators. Now, what is individual equity? That means in individual equity, you are comparing two individuals doing the same job. And how do you establish individual equity here? You establish individual equity here by what? Instituting, by designing variable pay plans. Two people, Sagar and Pratya, both are HR managers. Now, Pratya works, his performance, his productivity is very, very high. Now, I can't be paying the same amount to Sagar and the same amount to Pratya. I'll have to make some differentiation, right? Now, how will I make? By designing a incentive plan. More you work, more you get. A performance pay, high performance. So today, in fact, performance-based culture. In a performance-based culture, which is also one of the strategies, you will have the percentage of variable pay will be higher. So that's what. External equity, how do you establish external equity? By doing what? Market survey, by analyzing the market. But how will you establish internal equity? Internal equity is all about base pay. How will you do? How will you establish internal equity? What is that you will do? Anybody?
You can do job evaluation to understand.
Exactly. Job evaluation. So you do job evaluation to establish the worth of the job. Is there a difference between job evaluation and job analysis?
Yeah, job analysis is done first, followed by which job evaluation happens.
Very
Kind of.
good. No kind. Absolutely. Job
Yeah.
analysis is a systematic process of analyzing the job, and you use different techniques for it. It could be logging method, it could be questionnaire method, etc. You're analyzing the job and documenting and making a job description. So output is job description. You will get a job description when you analyze the job. Okay. And you can't do a job evaluation, means what is the worth of the job, which is without having a document of job description which tells you, hey, what are the key responsibilities, what kind of competencies it needs, what is that. So everything about the job, that document. Without the document, how will you evaluate a job? What are the compensable factors required? How is it? What is the effort required? What are the skill required, right? So if you want to do job evaluation, first is job analysis, which is analyzing the job and finding out what is exactly it requires and documenting it for the purpose of job evaluation. So there is a job description. And then you do a job evaluation. Okay, guys? So we talked about internal, external, and individual equity. What is procedural equity or procedural fairness?
Nirmala,
You
sorry
give
to
a
interrupt.
promotion.
Uh,
Pardon?
Sorry to interrupt. This is Ashwin here. I missed the part. There was some network issue at my end. If you could please help me understand why we do job analysis and um, job evaluation when just in one line. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, no problem. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, as the word suggests, job analysis. Very easy. Analyzing a job. How do you analyze a job? You analyze a job by a questionnaire method, okay? By,
Okay.
in fact, observing, logging method, questionnaire, or you can also or send out questionnaires to stakeholders, etc. So there are various methods which we will discuss in the next session. Now, why do you do job analysis? Because you want to document what this job does, the roles, the responsibilities, what is the
Okay.
skill required, what's the knowledge required. So you're documenting it. And that document is called a job description, which will help you define and understand the role and responsibilities of a job, particular job. Got it? Now, when I say job evaluation is what? Evaluating a job means you are evaluating a job for the purpose of establishing the value of the job, the worth of the job. Because if you want to establish internal equity, first there are 10 jobs in your organization. You are paying for these 10 jobs. What is the basis? For which job shall I pay more? There is a coder, there is a senior coder, there is an architect. So which job should I pay more? What is the criteria? What is the basis for paying more and paying less? You should have a justification. So little objective way of telling, hey, A job is higher, B job is lower. So I'm going to pay. So to stack them into hierarchy. That means highest to lowest. You need to have a technique, and that technique is called job evaluation, which we will deal with it in a next session. Got it?
No, noted,
Very
Nirmala. Thank
clear?
you so much. Yes, very clear. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So, what is procedural fairness? People get promoted. Since I'm able to see only, let me take somebody else's name now. Huh? So, Neha is here. So, Neha gets promoted. And even Ramachandran gets promoted. Ramachandran, oh my God, I should have got the what two levels of she got a higher increment and I have not got a, why is it? I have done the same effort, same rating somehow. So what has happened now? Ramachandran feels what?
Ma'am, but here
Not
it could
fair.
also be that the level at which
Yeah.
me or Ram has been promoted, the
Yeah.
the compensation band of that level would have been different.
Yeah, but it considering the fact that they're all same band, huh? So if it is all kept confidential, dark, Ramachandran will obviously feel, no? Then what will happen after the annual increment? He will reduce his work. It will demotivate him. So every organization will also have to what? Have something called procedural fairness. What does it mean? To be transparent so that there's a policy, there's a procedure, and that is why, the promotion policy, this is how we are promoting, this is how we are giving increments. so that people see there's a openness and there's a transparency. In fact, a lot of organizations put their even salary structures, I mean, not individual how much A and B are getting, but by and large, hey, this pay grades, so that people, know everything. Otherwise, I will recruit Sagar and say, hey, I do, don't tell the salary. It's very, very confidential. But that's the biggest joke, I guess. No? After coming in, he will also know the salary and I will also know how much is getting. So if you put it, make it open, transparent, that's called procedural fairness. What will happen? What is the output or what is the outcome when you have procedural fairness, transparency in decision making? What will happen? Quick, quick. Looks like, that fuel, that enthu is all died down now. Huh? What happens when you have transparency in your decision making, guys? Huh?
People will trust the
See,
system more. Fairness will be
There
there.
will be more trust. You will accept what you are given, right? Huh?
Productivity gets higher.
Absolutely. You'll be more engaged. You will not say, hey, how did this guy get? How did this guy get? Nothing of that kind, because the grapevine takes over. So to reduce the grapevine, it's better to have what transparency in everything you do, right? So with that, we come to the end of this session. All right. Huh? And quickly, we talked about what fundamentals, we talked about factors which impact compensation, we talked about the compensation basics, direct and indirect pay. And indirect, we have base salary, variable pay, deferred pay. And then we talked about a very important equity theory by Adam Smith, which talks about motivation. Why should people be motivated? And they will be motivated only when they see that there is what a balance between input and output. Input being all the effort, knowledge, everything which you bring into the table, and output being, the salary, reward, everything what you get, right? And how do they do that? How do they compare? By actually comparing it internally or externally or between two employees doing the same job. And these translate into what we call that internal equity, which is actually fairness within the organization. External, that means comparing it to the market. And individual equity, that means comparing it within two individuals. Now, this forms our basis for entire compensation. Because what happens when in the next session, when we do internal equity, we talk about job evaluation, because that's how you can bring in, evaluate the job, stack them into hierarchy, establish the worth of the job, and then say which job has to be paid higher and which job has to be paid lower. And then look at market and design a salary. Then when in the third session, we look at market, then we'll look at, market pricing. We'll look at how do we collect data, analyze data, how do we then come to, what is it, percentiles, and how do we know at what position or what percentile do we want to position, and look at the data and, try to where am I and how do I fill the gap. In the fourth, we'll look at variable incentives, long term, short term, ESOPs, etc., where we are looking at, establishing individual equity. So that is in a nutshell what we really covered today. Okay, guys? Any questions?
Ma'am,
No questions means it's like, okay, close the door.
ma'am,
Yeah.
this slides is not there. The slides has been shared. This equity theory.
All this will be given to you. This is called resource management. See, you should pay more attention to what I'm teaching. All this will be given to you. You will understand, you will be ability to comprehend will be more when you listen and you participate. Okay. But all this will be given to you. No worries. Okay.
These are already
In,
there in the LMS. If you have
yeah.
gone through it, you will find in session reading one,
In fact, I will show you because of the
session
paucity of
readings.
time. But let me just show you. Mm, all these documents will be shared with you where we have given. Can you see this document? Are you able to see? Huh?
Yes,
Are you
ma'am.
able to see this document? Key components of salary in India. I've given in detail so that you are able to. Let me show you. Everything, what we talked about, then tax deductions. And I've also given a salary calculator. When you put a CTC, how it calculates. Okay. With examples, say for example, 10 lakhs in the calculator, then how, and there is an Excel calculator with you all, which Wilma has sent it to you. All that you need to put is that CTC amount, and it will calculate for itself and come out with all the components. Okay. So, so all this will be given to you. How basic salary is calculated, how HRA is calculated, how PF and gratuity. So just to give you a, what all you get, and so you don't have to worry about it. Okay.
Okay.
In fact, yeah, 1 second. There's one more to share. See, all the tax benefits in terms of, okay, in detail. It's all about tax deductions. Where all can you do everything in detail? So you don't have to do. Okay, yes, some questions. Somebody had a question. Any questions? Yeah. Any questions?
Nirmal, I'll go first.
Ma'am,
So out
can
of
I
curiosity,
give
Yeah, I'll write. Tell me. Who's going first?
okay, I'll
Yeah,
go. I'll go.
please.
So quickly, just wanted to ask. So we'll be doing this like a practical as well, right? All this designing of the CTC perhaps and the variable pay, or how's it going to be? Just trying to understand.
Yeah. So you're trying to understand the methodology. In
Yes.
the session one, in fact, yeah, positive time. In fact, I would have also given some activities. Yeah, the salary calculator itself. It's setting the context.
Okay. Okay.
So some amount of theoretical input was required, setting the context.
Understood.
Now, in the succeeding sessions, it will be more of group work. For example, if I'm going to teach you job evaluation point plan method, okay, I don't know
Okay.
how many of you heard of point plan. So you will be doing how to arrive at points, identifying compensable factors, points, total value, total point value of the job, then look at market data, and then do the regression analysis. All this you will be doing practically. Okay.
Understood, Nirmal. That helps a lot. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of times market data. So how will you arrive at, how will you do that percentiles? Okay. So there will be some kind of a statistical tools as well.
Okay.
You will be
Okay.
doing it there so that you are able to follow, and we will simplify it for you.
Sure, sure. And also compare ratio by any chance? I've heard something about compare ratio.
See, all this you will be doing comp
Wonderful.
ratios, red
Wonderful.
circle, blue circle. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Not to worry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Examples. What is a comp ratio? How do you calculate that? Okay. How do you even out salary compressions? You will do that. So as I said, this session one is to give you the set the context.